Let us pray. Eternal God, we pray that you will bless this meeting. We ask that all may feel your presence during this meeting because you are with us wherever we go. We pray that this meeting focuses upon your plans for our communities as a whole. Let all members' words and actions in this meeting be valuable, just and fair. God of justice and mercy, we thank you for the gift of life and the opportunity to serve the people of our borough. Help us to act with character and conviction. Help us to listen with understanding and goodwill. Help us to speak with charity and restraint. Give us a spirit of service. Remind us that we are stewards of your authority. And guide us to be the leaders that your people need. Help us to see the humanity and dignity of those who disagree with us, and to treat all persons, no matter how weak or poor, with the reverence that your creation deserves. And finally, Father, renew us with the strength of your presence and the joy of helping to build a community worthy of the human person. We ask this as people created in your image, confident in your goodness and love. Amen.
Right, please be seated. Thank you, Philip.
Can I have some water, please? Thank you very much.
Item 1, declarations of interest. Do any members have any personal or prejudicial interest to declare? Item 2, confirmation of minutes. I would like to propose that the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of July 2025 to be confirmed as a correct record.
I'm happy to second those minutes.
Did anyone wants to speak on this? We will then take the vote on it. All in favour? Thank you. You don't want abstentions, do you? Right, Mayor's announcements. Firstly, I would like to say thank you to Tim Dixon for running around the borough, even though it took him 3 days. But he did raise a few £100 for my charities. At the last coffee morning, we raised about £500. Thank you again for all those that supported or gave us things towards it. And do think, if you'd like to come for a curry evening, it's the 28th of October. We'd love to see you. It's excellent curry, I'll vouch for. Any other meetings? Item 4. Ian, do you have any communications on behalf of the Chief Executive?
No communications, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Item 5, questions from members of the public. There are no questions on this occasion. Item 6, questions from members of the council. There are no questions on this occasion. Agenda item 7, a notice of motion. Housing pressures and migrant accommodation procurement in file. I invite Councillor Dixon to introduce this notice of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, do I just read the motion out at this stage? Yes. Right. Okay, so the motion to council is, this council recognises the vital role played by Fyldes housing officers in delivering safe, secure and appropriate accommodation for all residents, including those facing homelessness, refugees and those granted asylum, supported through approved government resettlement programmes. However, in recent months, government directives and national pressures have significantly increased the demand on our housing team to provide support and guidance around the suitability of further housing for a growing number of migrant placements. These placements are often made outside the established resettlement schemes and without the necessary resources, guidance or support from central government. This council commends the dedication and professionalism of our housing team, who continue to serve all those in need with compassion and integrity under increasingly challenging circumstances. It further acknowledges the strain placed on local housing services due to an increased demand from uncoordinated migrant placements, limited housing stock availability, and insufficient funding and consultation from central government. The council therefore resolves to call on HM Government to provide additional funding to support Fyldes housing team in delivering government-mandated work, alongside clearer guidance and timelines for the placement of asylum seekers and those granted asylum, and longer-term investment to alleviate pressure on local authorities. 2. Request that Serco, the government's contracted accommodation provider, immediately suspend its activity in Fylde relating to the procurement of private housing for migrant accommodation in light of the disproportionate impact this is having on local housing availability and service capacity. 3. Write to the Secretary of State for MHCLG to express concern over the lack of consultation with local authorities regarding housing procurement for asylum accommodation and to request a formal review of current practices. And 4. Refer this motion to the Local Government Association for consideration as part of its national advocacy on housing pressures and migration policy. That's the notice of motion.
Councillor Dixon, do you have a seconder?
I do.
Mr Mayor, I rise to second to the motion and reserve my right to speak.
Would anyone like to speak on this item? Councillor Leisure first.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I must oppose this motion and I urge that it be withdrawn. Not just because it is inflammatory and divisive, but because it is factually inaccurate and I believe politically motivated. This motion was very clearly written by AI. It includes a number of tells that rarely appear outside of work produced by AI. And while they accept that using those types of tools can be helpful in assisting for some work, it should not be a substitute for official council work. The motion, while dressed in concern for our housing team, is riddled with inaccuracies and political undertones, as is so often the case with AI, because it is not capable of proper fact-checking. The motion also echoes, suspiciously so, the inflammatory rhetoric of our local MP, Andrew Snowden's multiple social media videos, which repeatedly have stoked fear and resentment around the housing of asylum seekers. In the first of these videos, on the 13th of August, Mr Snowden implied that he had been working jointly with this council to oppose the housing of asylum seekers in Fylde. However, given that this is the first council meeting to discuss this matter, under our committee system where no member or group has sole decision-making powers, I find it troubling that Mr Snowden believes that he can speak on behalf of this council without consulting us or respecting our democratic process. It leads me to think that this motion has simply been drafted by AI in a rushed manner as a proxy to try to make Mr Snowden's claims about this council's position true, but only after the fact. In another one of Mr Snowden's videos, he makes unfounded claims about housing pressure in Fylde. While I agree there is housing pressure within our borough, that is due to the lack of affordable housing for residents, not by a very small number of asylum seekers. In that video, he opposes building new homes here, but in the first video, he claims Fylde's housing pressures are significant. So which one is it? Let us be honest. This motion is not about policy, it is about politics. It is about distraction, and it is about scapegoating. And it risks turning this council into nothing more than a mouthpiece for Mr Snowden's misinformation and political ambitions. So let me start by setting out some facts. According to this council's own data, there are currently just 73 asylum seekers across 41 households in the Serco accommodation. In other words, that is less than 0.089% of the entire borough's population, and a fraction compared to neighbouring councils. Mr Snowden's language of dumping and referring to rumours online about allegations of illegal immigrants filming children in parks is not only misleading, it is dangerous and irresponsible. It stokes fear and division, and it's not backed by data. It demeans Mr Snowden's office and this council. I think it's also important we understand why this country is in this situation. Because of 14 years of the last government's failure on immigration. The last government abandoned the Dublin Agreement, which allowed the UK to return asylum seekers to the first EU country they entered. If this country still had that mechanism, we could return around half of asylum seekers to another European country tomorrow. The last government failed to reduce illegal immigration despite repeated promises, and in fact, small boat crossings surged under their watch. They also oversaw a record increase in legal migration, with net migration reaching over 600,000 in 2022, far above the tens of thousands they had pledged. because of poorly thought out post-Brexit immigration rules. And let's not forget the chaos of the failed Rwanda scheme, which cost the British taxpayer multiple millions of pounds and deported exactly 0 people. Finally, under the last government, the asylum backlog quadrupled, leaving thousands in limbo. That is not a strong record, it's a legacy of failure. And the sheer hubris of Mr. Snowden on the claims made in this motion to try and point the finger literally anywhere else but the people who caused this mess is insulting to the people who filed. This motion pretends that the problem started yesterday. It pretends the Conservative Party didn't govern this country for well over a decade, and it pretends that Mr. Snowden isn't using this to whip up division for his own political gain. But we, as a serious council, must rise above that. We are not Mr. Snowden's puppet. The current government is taking action, real action, to fix the broken problem of the previous government. The Border Security, Asylum and Immigration Bill will strengthen law enforcement powers to disrupt organised criminal gangs and reduce dangerous small boat crossings. The government is also going to introduce a contribution-based system for people with indefinite leave to remain, requiring migrants to work, contribute and engage in our communities. And this government is closing asylum hotels far faster than the previous government's target of 2029 and investing in faster returns. And by the way, there are no asylum hotels in Fylde. Crucially, this government is working to restore public confidence in a broken system by balancing some compassion with actual real control, rather than costly, tokenistic and failing policies of the previous government. I also think it's important to be clear, asylum seekers are not criminals. They are people fleeing war, persecution and hardship. Many will go on to contribute to our society in the NHS, as teachers or entrepreneurs. They are not the so-called invaders that the previous government referred to them as. We must reject this motion not just because it is incorrect, but because it is dangerous. It risks turning neighbour against neighbour. It risks undermining our values, and it risks dragging Fylde into a culture war that serves absolutely no one but Nigel Farage and Tommy Robinson. This motion risks stoking fear, not solving problems. It risks turning this council into a proxy for Westminster politics, and it risks undermining the professionalism of our housing officers who are doing an exceptional job under pressure. We started this meeting with a Christian prayer, so let's show that we actually listen to it and emulate those important unifying Christian values that so many of us hold dear. Instead of passing a motion based on rumour and rhetoric, I propose that we take time to investigate the specifics of asylum housing in Fylde.
Can I ask you to wind up, please? You're allowed 10 minutes for
And
this.
consult with our officers and draft a motion that is more accurate, constructive and is actually rooted in fact. I urge that this motion be withdrawn and let's work together on a better one. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I too stand to oppose this motion, not because I don't recognise that our housing team might be facing pressures or the challenges caused by inadequate national funding, but because I believe this proposal takes us down the wrong path. The reality is that Fylde, like every other area, has a legal and moral duty to provide safe and decent accommodation for those fleeing war, persecution or hardship. Many of the people we're talking about are families, vulnerable children, women and men, who may already have suffered greatly before they arrive here. Instead of standing together to find constructive, practical solutions, this motion risks sending a message that Fylde wants to turn its back on those most in need. Calling for Serco to suspend its activities or halting the procurement of homes could leave vulnerable people with nowhere to go, and that is neither compassionate nor lawful. Yes, we could press government for better funding and clearer guidance. On that point I agree. But that part of the motion is overshadowed by rhetoric that blames migrants themselves rather than the broken system. We should be working with partners, not telling them to stop providing housing at a time of crisis. If we pass this motion, we risk damaging Fylde's reputation as a welcoming, caring community and creating legal and financial risks for this council. Instead, let us work together through the LGA and our MP to secure the resources and planning we need without scapegoating those seeking safety. For those reasons, I cannot support the motion as written and urge colleagues to reject it. Thank you.
Does anybody else want to speak before I come back to you? All right, Councillor Dixon.
Well, Mr Mayor, if ever there were two people that hadn't read the notice of motion properly before and listened to that, those two statements were ridiculous. I've no idea what the MP thinks about immigration. I've never spoken to him about it. I've never watched a video that he's done on it. This notice of motion was never intended to be a debate on immigration in any way, shape or form. We shouldn't be discussing immigration in this council chamber. It's a national issue, a central government issue. We've no say or sway over it in hearing filed whatsoever. We are a welcoming borough. We have a large number of Afghan residents, one of the largest Ukrainian communities in the northwest. Our communities have welcomed refugees with open hearts and minds, and our borough is richer for it. However, we must acknowledge the phenomenal work our housing and homeless team carries out across Fylde is in danger because of the increasing amount of work being put on it by the government with no extra funding. I want all councillors and residents to understand that those increasing pressures on their time without extra funding mean that that service will diminish for everybody involved. Our team respond to homelessness in a number of ways. They help families in need. They go out and speak with anyone reported as homeless on our streets, usually multiple times. They offer all the help you would hope for, a place to stay, contact, health checks, steps to getting back on their feet again. They deal with people whose circumstances have changed, who've lost employment, who've been evicted from their homes, those with mental health difficulties, as well as those who arrive here with asylum cases or as immigrants. But they also deal with a number of programmes for which we receive funding, helping home and integrate, for example, those Afghanistan refugees that we spoke about before. They hold regular events to make sure those residents are integrating in our communities and keeping in touch with each other. Now, however, the government is looking to place an increasing number of asylum seekers or migrants in homes around the country, with no help for us to do that. Our team are dealing with this is what annoyed me about one of the suggestions there, that this is all written by AI. This was written with our housing officers after sitting in the room and looking at the number of calls coming in Serco on a daily basis and seeing them on the board behind, and our officers having to spend so much of their time dealing with an issue which is not government funded. They deal with multiple calls a day from Serco, highlighting houses they want to buy to place people in. It takes time and effort from our team to tell them whether or not those properties are suitable or whether they're not suitable. Time and effort which is not compensated for by the government. Time and effort away from the day-to-day needs of everyone in the borough. Serco purchasing a home removes another potential piece of housing stock for us to consider in meeting our pre-existing need. Our team have done fantastic. They've secured over 20 homes to help reduce the hundreds of thousands of pounds a year bill that we were facing to accommodate those presenting as homeless. We need more, but this pressure is removing stock. It is forcing up prices that we're looking at. Often, and here's one of the other issues with Serco, often the families or individuals placed by Serco are only placed on a short-term basis. Serco do not do a good job. I wish it was our housing team that were doing that job because they'd do it far better. That often means those families have to leave those premises and they then have to present to our housing team as homeless. Further pressure on them. So the reason for this notice of motion, Mr Mayor, was to recognise this extra pressure on our team, to recognise it's another burden from government on our resources which they do not compensate us for. They already cut our funding this year with a 0% settlement and a broken promise to fund to cover the national insurance tax rise they imposed on us. That never came. That reduction in funding, combined with an increased workload, means the services of our staff are being stretched unreasonably. Our staff are excellent at what they do, but that increasing workload without that support is taking its toll. And it's for that reason alone I brought this notice of motion. There was some language being used over there on the other side then. Criminality, blame, scapegoating. There is none of that in this notice of motion. This notice of motion is to recognise the extra work that we're being asked to do and that we're not being given time and money for, Mr Mayor. That's the reason I brought this notice of motion, and I hope all councillors will support it, support our housing and homelessness team, and call on the government to put the resources in when they're asking for the extra help, and I'm sure our housing team will be glad to spend more time on it for them.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. I think that takes us straight to the vote. So, can all those in favour of the notice of motion please indicate?
No, sorry, I was going to speak.
Oh, sorry, I beg, did you want to speak?
Yeah.
Beg your pardon.
Thanks. I don't think this debate is helped at all by the wild allegations and misrepresentations of two speakers we heard from the other side of the chamber, which sounded to me like party political broadcasts on an audition for a job at Westminster. This is all about the housing stock in this borough and how we can fund it and how we can help to provide it for migrants, not all of whom are vulnerable, most of whom have come from France, not fleeing war-torn areas of the world. We cannot be the home for the world, for the world's dispossessed, and we have to take a pragmatic view. And I don't think that's helped at all by this kind of talk.
Can I assume, does anybody else want to speak on this item? No, then we will go to
Councillor Henshaw.
Councillor Henshaw.
It's on. Could I ask who set up Serco? Thank you.
Councillor Henshaw, we'll have to get back to you with that answer. Anybody against? Any abstentions? One. Okay, the notice of motion is carried. Agenda item 8, I invite Councillor Buckley to propose this item.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. The corporate plan was recently reviewed by our scrutiny committee on the 2nd of September this year and noted that the good progress that has been made already towards the corporate plan. I want to thank the scrutiny committee for their deliberations and note that they will continue to review the ongoing progress of the corporate plan going forward. I simply put the recommendations to the council this evening, Mr Mayor, which are that the council notes the good progress towards the corporate plan, and also the second recommendation, which refers to the corporate plan being reviewed and where necessary redrafted to accommodate resource implication because of the move towards local government reorganisation in Lancashire. So I simply move those recommendations, and I have a seconder, Councillor John Kirkham. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Kirkham.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I stand to second this recommendation. Thank you.
Does anyone want to speak on this item? We will then take the vote. Those in favour? That looks unanimous. Right, the motion is carried. Agenda item 9. I invite Councillor Karen Buckley to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item is to request adjustment to committee allocations, which has been put forward by Councillor Peter Collins. And so I'm very happy to move the recommendations, which are that Councillor Mark Bamforth be appointed to the Internal Affairs Scrutiny Committee in place of Councillor Damien Buckley. Secondly, Councillor Peter Collins be appointed to the Community Focus Scrutiny Committee in the place of Councillor Damien Buckley. And as I've been notified that it's Councillor Paul Hayhurst to be appointed to the Audit and Governance Committee in place of Councillor Damien Buckley. These seats on these committees are all independent member seats. I'm happy to make those recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you. You have a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Second.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm very happy to second these recommendations.
Thank you. Does anybody want to speak on this item? We will take the vote. All in favour? Looks unanimous. Anyone against? Discounted. Agenda item 10. Schedule of meetings for 26-27. I invite Councillor Karen Buckley to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I simply move the recommendation to approve the schedule of meetings for 26-27. Thank you.
And do you have a seconder?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to second those recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Beckley. We will take a vote on this. All in favour?
Oh, Councillor Collins.
Sorry? But did you want to speak? Yes, please. Oh, I beg your pardon. Councillor Collins, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I noticed from the schedule of meetings that full council meetings will be carried on a Tuesday. There are a lot of parish council meetings that take place on a Tuesday evening, and they're clashing because of the change of this council. It's always been a Monday, all the time I've been on the council, changing from a Monday to a Tuesday. So I'd like to propose an amendment that full council meetings be moved back to a Monday evening.
Thank you. Can I second?
Right, thank you, Councillor Collins. We will now read the amendment out.
Mr Mayor, the amendment is, I propose that full council meetings go back to being held on Monday evenings to avoid clashes with parish and town council meetings. That is the amendment, Mr Mayor, proposed.
Okay, so first of all, we will vote on the amendment. Oh, does anybody want to speak on the amendment? Sorry. Anyone?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Whatever day of the week is chosen, it will always be inconvenient for some. And moving it from a Monday, there were already parish councils meeting on a Monday, so moving it away from a Monday to a Tuesday will no doubt have an impact on other council meetings. I know that our Democratic Services team have done a fantastic job at really trying their best to avoid clashes with bank holidays, festivals, council meetings, town council meetings, as much as they possibly can, and I thank them for that. I know we've poured over this quite a lot. So I would urge members to stick with the schedule of meetings as they are, recognising that, of course, there will always be clashes. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak on this amendment? In that case, we will go to vote on the amendment. All those in favour? Then the amendment is lost, and we can go straight to the vote on the main item now.
Unless anybody else
So,
wants to speak.
does anyone else want to speak on this matter? No. In that case, we will go to item 10, and we'll take the vote on it. All those in favour? The motion is carried. That takes us to item agenda 11, to accept the appointment of Deputy Mayor. And I invite Councillor Redcliffe to propose this item.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. It is my pleasure, privilege and honour to propose the recommendation that the Council invites Councillor Viv Wilder to accept appointment at the 2026 annual meeting as Deputy Mayor of the Borough of Fylde for the municipal year 2026-27. I hope we have support for this, and I have a seconder in Councillor Settle.
Thank you. Councillor Settle.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm absolutely delighted to second the proposal that Councillor Viv Wilder, my good friend, becomes our next Deputy Mayor. Thank you.
Does anybody want to speak on this item? In that case, we will go straight to the vote. All in favour? As that is unanimous. We don't need to vote against.
Agenda item 12, exclusive of the public.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I simply move for exclusion of the public in order to move on to discuss item 13. Thank you.
Do you have a seconder?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to second the recommendation. Thank you.
In that case, we can go straight to the vote on it. All in favour?
Appears to be unanimous.
Unanimous, or almost unanimous. Thank you.